Hey everybody, welcome back to Video Game So Derek got a fun and exciting episode for you guys today because we're going to be talking about Xbox 360 emulation with Xenia and Xenia Manager. That is because as of about 18 hours ago, as I'm recording this voiceover, Xenia Manager got a 4.0 update bringing in a ton of improvements, a ton of fixes overall how the application works, just streamlining Xbox 360 emulation, improving all of the different games, and basically giving you an easier experience when it comes to emulating the Xbox 360. Just be aware that Xbox 360 emulation is still not a complete thing, so not every single game is going to work perfectly. Just temper your expectations, that way you can't be disappointed. But honestly, if you want to emulate Xbox 360, I would not do anything other than grab Xenia Manager if you haven't yet. It really does make a massive difference in your overall experience. Before we get too far involved though, do me a huge favor, go down below, hit like and subscribe, and ring that notification bell. Definitely helps us out. If you feel so inclined and want to support the channel, I got a Patreon link down below as well. But if you're not using Xenia Manager and you are playing around with Xbox 360 emulation, I can't recommend it enough. It really is the easy way to enjoy games, and it really does remove the barrier between what you're trying to do and actually just having fun. Because that is the reality of emulation, whether it's complete or incomplete like Xenia is. You don't want to spend a ton of time fiddling around with a massive amount of diverse options. You just want to jump into a game, and if it runs well, have fun with it. Because playing with emulators can be a good time, but at the end of the day, you don't want to spend as much time with the overall settings. And you'll see here, the last time I did a video on this was July of last year when Xenia Manager was at 3.0. So if you have not updated this in a while, I can't recommend it enough. It is just going to be a better version of an already amazing piece of software, and definitely one you want to grab very shortly. But I want to make one distinction very clear before we get any further into this video. Xenia Manager is not an emulator, it is a front end for Xenia Canary or other Xenia builds, so this isn't going to quote unquote improve your Xbox 360 emulation experience, except it actually kind of can. That is because it's going to have per game settings that are ingested from an actual database that will change Xenia Canary settings upon launch, so that there is something you need to toggle to make the emulation work or work better. That'll automatically be done for you, and that's going to be an absolute massive time save and just give you a better overall experience. And you'll see here, if we go through the 4.0 main features, there are a ton of them. All of them are important, but I'm just going to go over the high level ones here. That way you can understand just how useful this is and just how big of a deal it has been since it updated to 4.0. You're going to get the easy content installer and manager. You're going to be able to put DLC on without actually launching into Xenia, saving you a step, because the Xbox 360 was the DLC era, so it's definitely going to be important. You can also have patch management. You can deal with the game patches in a unified window and just basically make an easier experience. But the biggest one for me that's gotten better since 3.0 is the per game configuration profile. Basically, if you're going to play a game and there is some sort of setting that you need to change to make it work, and we see that on the RPCS3 and PlayStation 3 emulation side as well, Xenia Manager will automatically do that for you before you actually jump into the game. And just recently we took a look at the Viva Pinata Trouble in Paradise recomp for the Xbox 360 that uses Xenia as the backend underpinnings for something like graphics and the audio. Well, if you run something like Viva Pinata Trouble in Paradise purely in Xenia, there are a few settings that you want to change to get the best experience out of it. And again, you might not know what those are or even where to actually find those settings. That is why Xenia Manager makes such a big difference. You don't need to even think about whether or not the game has an enhancement patch or any sort of options that need to be changed. It'll automatically take care of it for you if they exist. Now, I will leave a link in the description below to this database. You're going to see 156 games have optimized settings that are going to be either recommended or required to get these games to run in Xenia Canary. And if you scroll down, you're going to see a lot of the biggest games on the Xbox 360, and Viva Pinata Trouble in Paradise is going to be included in that. So when you open up a game in Xenia Manager and you add it, if it has any of these settings whatsoever, they'll automatically be applied just for when you're running that game. When you run the next game, if they're not required, they will drop off. If you run another game that needs different settings, it'll automatically do that for you as well. So again, a massive time save that's going to give you a better experience. And you can even move into the files and see exactly what the settings change, but honestly, that doesn't really seem to be all that important to the end user. Something fun you can check out. So definitely keep that in mind, again, especially if you're not using Xenia Manager, because it's one of those things. Save the time in the setup, have more time to enjoy the game, because if you're like me, you only have a limited time to actually sit down and even play a game, and the last thing you want to be doing is fiddling around with the emulator settings, spending 45 minutes to an hour getting a game to run correctly, just to find out that you blew all of your gaming time that evening or day on this setup and actually didn't get a chance to play whatsoever. And the reality is, Xenia Canary, as well as Xbox 360 emulation, can be quite good. I wouldn't say it's up to the level RPCS3, and that's not a knock against the emulator. It's just one of those things. Xbox and Xbox 360 emulation are still in development, and depending on what type of game you're trying to run, you're going to have better or worse results. Something like Deadly Premonition will run, but it definitely has a couple graphical glitches, and it's also going to be our next soundtrack sample just because I love the music in the game, and anytime I can talk about Deadly Premonition, specifically the Xbox 360 version, and tell you if you haven't played it, you're missing out on one of the best games ever made, I will take that opportunity. So go ahead and listen to the soundtrack, and I'll be right back with some more Xenia features. Really, that soundtrack sample was just me trying to compel you to play Deadly Premonition. If you never have, trust me, it is absolutely a 10 out of 10 while also being a 3 out of 10. But if you have a Xenia Manager setup going right now, there's going to be a couple of things that aren't going to work in the new version, but trust me, they are very minimal, and I appreciate the developer indicates what those are going to be. There's going to be a lot of new features as well, so you can go over this list, but again, I will touch on some of the top level stuff. The enhanced patch management is going to be absolutely epic as far as actually allowing you to add, edit, export, and remove the patches with the games, because there are a lot of situations where those can be very useful in Xbox 360 emulation, and again, an easier way to install the DLC content is going to make a big difference, because like I said earlier in the video, there's so many different games that had DLC on the Xbox 360, getting it to actually work in there is going to be nice. But those bulk game optimizations, definitely my favorite feature as far as Xenia Canary 4.0 is concerned. And again, if you haven't played around with Xbox 360 emulation recently, I can't recommend you check it out enough. Just be aware that you definitely want to bring a good PC to the party. This is not potato PC territory. If you bring a potato, you're basically going to watch games run at a slideshow. I have an i9-12900K with a 3080 Ti and 64GB of RAM, and that can basically brute force a lot of games into getting close to running full speed if they want to, but there's still some games on Xenia Canary that just don't emulate at full speed, no matter what specification you have, because Xbox 360 again is still in active development as far as emulation is concerned, and it is going to be some years until we see a lot of improvements, because the Xbox 360, just like the PlayStation 3, is a very complex piece of hardware, and it definitely takes a lot of man-hours as far as the code is concerned to be able to make that work. As you'll see there, that one hitch, that's just something that happens in the emulation, and there really isn't any avoiding it, but there was also a small pause there on Real Harder because I believe it's loading in the next room. But definitely check out Xenia Manager. It just has so many fun new features, and it really makes Xbox 360 emulation a lot easier on the end user, especially if you're not familiar with emulating a lot of stuff. Let's do one more soundtrack sample so you can hear the audio quality of current Xenia Canary emulation on El Shaddai Ascent to the Metatron, another hidden gem game, and I'll be right back with just a little bit more information.
Hey, what's the matter? You don't trust me? I guess. Well, I'd say so far so good. Uh-huh. You know I could never say no to you.
and I can never say no to another emulation update video. You know I love to make them. And a nice feature is also going to be Steam shortcuts, so you can actually get these games into your Steam library and basically launch them from there via Xenia Manager. Xenia Manager will work in the background, but when you're in your Steam library, you just go ahead and double click things, you'll be good to go. And you also have performance optimization for basically the entire library, and that again is going to be absolutely amazing, because Xbox 360 emulation is a good time. Just don't expect it to be a perfect time and you won't be upset. But every single clip you've seen in this video was captured via Xbox 360 emulation and not via any sort of real hardware. And I totally get it, an Xbox 360 that can run any game out there is not expensive, so you can definitely go that route. But remember, that hardware sadly will not last forever. It'll all die eventually, or it'll become expensive when it becomes rare, because trust me, a lot of Xbox 360s had the red ring of death, and honestly probably half of them that were ever made are already broken at this point in time, and it's not like Microsoft is making any more. So the link is in the description below. Hope you enjoyed the video. If you have any questions or comments, leave them down below and I'll try to answer them. But I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.
Yeah. All right. Catch you later.